Today we're going to cover 5,000 years of Chinese history in one go. Let's begin. Around 3000 BC, the tribes across China were growing very strong and prosperous. Gradually, the stronger tribes began absorbing the weaker ones, swallowing them up. In the Central Plains, two powerful tribal confederacies emerged: the tribe of the Flame Emperor and the tribe of the Yellow Emperor. These two tribes fought at the Battle of Bangquan. The Yellow Emperor defeated the Flame Emperor, and the two tribes slowly merged into the Huaxia people. The Flame Emperor and the Yellow Emperor became the founding ancestors of the Huaxia. This is the origin of the term descendants of Yuan and Huang. Not long after, the Yellow Emperor won the Battle of Zhuolu, defeating the Qiyu tribe to the southeast. The Yellow Emperor became the first of the 5 emperors in the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors era. The 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, simply put, were 3 sovereigns plus 5 emperors, essentially a group of remarkably capable tribal leaders. The 3 sovereigns were Suiren, Fuxi, and Shennong. Suiren discovered fire by drilling wood, teaching people to cook with fire and defend against enemies. Fuxi taught everyone how to hunt and fish, make clothing from animal hides, and invented the 8 trigrams for divination. Shennong taught people farming and personally tasted hundreds of plants to discover their medicinal properties. The 5 emperors were the Yellow Emperor, Zhuangzhu, Diku, Emperor Yao, and Emperor Shun, 5 exceptionally talented leaders. The Yellow Emperor unified the Central Plains and became the shared leader of the entire Huaxia people. Zhuangzhu reformed the laws. Diku established the solar calendar. Emperor Yao determined the almanac. Emperor Shun civilized the people and set social norms. These 5 wise rulers all worked hard to govern their people, helping the Huaxia civilization grow and flourish. At this time, the position of leader was passed from one ruler to the most capable person, not to a son. This was called the abdication system, and as the Huaxia people grew stronger and more numerous, the conditions for forming a proper state were almost in place. The Xia dynasty was about to step onto the stage of history. If you ask which dynasty in Chinese history is the most controversial, the answer is definitely the Xia, because there isn't enough evidence or historical records, so whether the Xia dynasty actually existed remains to be verified. It is said that Yu the Great tamed the floods, and under the abdication system, he became Shun's successor, successfully becoming the leader. When Yu the Great was dying, he intended to pass the throne to Boyi, because Boyi had been Yu's right-hand man in controlling the floods. He even wrote a remarkable book, the classic of mountains and seas. But Yu's son Qi stepped forward to oppose this, and seized the throne back from Boyi. Qi founded the Xia dynasty, breaking the old tradition of the realm belongs to all, the abdication system. After Qi died, Kang ascended to the throne, but he only knew how to indulge in pleasure and ignored state affairs. Hou Yi, the leader of the Yuqiong tribe, seeing that the Xia royal house had many problems, seized the opportunity to take the throne. This is what history calls Kang's loss of the state. Hou Yi had risen to power by overthrowing Kang, yet he failed to learn from Kang's mistakes. He did not learn from Kang's lesson at all. He spent his days lost in wine and pleasure, handing all state affairs over to a subordinate official named Han Zhuo. The ambitious Han Zhuo then killed Hou Yi and seized power for himself. Later, a Xia descendant, Shao Kang, led troops to storm the capital, killed Han Zhuo, and reclaimed the throne. From then on, the newly crowned Shao Kang worked hard to govern the state, and the Xia dynasty returned to prosperity. History calls this the Shao Kang Restoration. The Xia dynasty's last ruler, Jie, spent his days lost in debauchery and invented a torture called cannon roasting to amuse himself by tormenting prisoners. He completely ignored all advice from his ministers. Shang Tang led his army to attack Jie. After the Battle of Ming, Jie was sent into exile, and the Xia dynasty fell. The rulers of one dynasty moving the capital again and again. What a way to run a kingdom. In the final years of the Xia, the Shang tribal chief Cheng Tang seized his chance and launched a rebellion. Jie hastily rallied his royal forces to fight the Shang army at Ming. The Xia army was crushed and Jie was captured. Shang Tang founded the second dynasty in Chinese history, the Shang. After Tang founded the Shang, the rules of succession were never very clear. Sometimes power passed from brother to brother, other times from father to son. The Shang's earliest capital was at Bo. Starting from the 11th king, Zhongding, the royal family endured years of continuous power struggles over the throne, with the capital shifting repeatedly between Henan, Shandong, and Hebei. This went on for 5 generations and 9 kings. History calls this the 9 generations of chaos. Later, the Shang's 19th king, Panggeng, came to power and moved the capital to Yin, finally bringing this period of chaos to an end. After Panggeng moved the capital, politics stabilized, all the lords came to pay tribute, and the Shang dynasty grew powerful again. The 22nd Shang king, Wu Ding, after taking the throne, governed the state with great order. The Shang's power reached its peak. Wu Ding reigned for 59 years. This period is known as the Wu Ding Restoration. The final ruler, King Zhou, Emperor Qin, was incompetent and debauched and extremely cruel. King Wu of Zhou led the lords to campaign against King Zhou, and at the final battle of Muye, the Shang army was defeated. The Shang dynasty, over 500 years old, fell just like that. The Zhou dynasty lasted over 800 years. In Chinese history, it was a period of explosive development. The Zhou culture that has been passed down for 3,000 years still influences every descendant of the Huaxia people. In 1046 BC, King Wu of Zhou, with the support of Jiang Taigong, campaigned against King Zhou of Shang. At the Battle of Muye, the Zhou army won a decisive victory. After the Zhou was founded, King Wu died of illness not long after defeating Shang. The young King Cheng inherited the throne. The Duke of Zhou's regency aroused the suspicion and jealousy of Guanshu, Kaishu, and other lords. Wu Geng, son of King Zhou of Shang, seized the opportunity to win them over and launch a rebellion. The Duke of Zhou personally led his army on an eastern campaign, taking 3 years to finally suppress the Three Monitors' rebellion. After King Cheng, King Kang succeeded to the throne. During King Kang's reign, the state was powerful, the economy prosperous, and society was at peace. Later generations referred to this period, along with the latter part of King Cheng's reign, as the Cheng Kang prosperity. Through the reigns of Kings Zhao and Mu, the Zhou dynasty's power continued to grow. But after King Li took the throne, he became extremely brutal. King Li was eventually driven out of the capital Haojing. Afterward, Gongbo He acted as regent, a period known as Gonghe joint governance. After 14 years of joint governance, King Xuan inherited the throne. He reigned for 46 years, working hard to govern the state. Politics ran smoothly, and the lords came to pay tribute. Later generations called this the Xuan Restoration. After King Xuan, King Yu took the throne. King Yu was licentious and unruly, deeply devoted to his consort Bao Si. He even staged the beacon fires trick, losing the trust of all the lords. In 771 BC, the ever-watchful Quanrong nomads seized their chance and stormed the capital Haojing. King Yu was killed. The Western Zhou, which had existed for 275 years, fell. After King Yu's death, a coalition of lords defeated the Quanrong. The crown prince, King Ping, inherited the throne. In 770 BC, King Ping moved the capital east to Luoyi. History calls this King Ping's Eastern Migration. From then on, the Zhou entered the Eastern Zhou era, specifically its first half, the spring and autumn period. After King Ping's Eastern Migration, the Zhou royal house's authority declined, and its power grew weaker and weaker. It frequently had to turn to powerful lords for help. The larger states, competing for power and resources, kept launching wars of annexation. Duke Huan of Qi, Duke Wen of Jin, Duke Xiang of Song, Duke Mu of Qin, and King Zhuang of Chu rose to dominance in succession. History calls them the 5 hegemons of the spring and autumn period. In the middle and later spring and autumn period, the states of Wu, Chu, and Yue in the Yangtze River basin repeatedly broke out in wars for supremacy. A succession of hegemons emerged: King Helu of Wu, King Fuchai of Wu, and King Gujian of Yue. In 453 BC, the Han, Zhao, and Wei families joined forces, defeating the Ji clan at Jinyang, then divided Jin among themselves. This is the famous event known as the Partition of Jin. From then on, wars between the states became more and more frequent, and the Spring and Autumn period gave way to the Warring States period. After the intense power struggles of the Spring and Autumn period, the Warring States period saw 7 major states form: Qi, Chu, Yan, Han, Zhao, Wei, and Qin, known to later generations as the 7 Warring States. In 256 BC, King Nan of Zhou died, and the Zhou Dynasty, the House of the Son of Heaven, ceased to exist. Meanwhile, after social reforms, Qin's power surged to first among the 7 states. Through a series of wars, King Zheng of Qin defeated the 6 states, and in 221 BC achieved unification, founding the Qin dynasty. The first emperor in Chinese history, Qin Shi Huang, ruled the realm. The Qin dynasty is a textbook every ruler must study. Qin wiped out the 6 states with unstoppable force, and a massive empire appeared out of nowhere. At this time, the Qin dynasty was like a young man full of vigor, direct and straightforward. Yet Qin Shi Huang faced a life-or-death question. How do you rule a country this vast? Because having achieved China's first unification, even a small misstep could lead to complete ruin. For Qin Shi Huang, Ying Zheng, the threats he faced mainly came from 3 directions. 3 fronts. First, rebellion by the common people. Second, the 6 states seeking restoration. Third, invasion by foreign peoples. Foreign invasion, Ying Zheng wasn't afraid of. After all, the great Qin Empire's military strength was unmatched, and he could build the Great Wall to defend against invasion. So the most urgent priority was strengthening internal control. He abolished the feudal system and implemented the commandery county system. He standardized the currency, weights and measures, and the written script. He relocated all the wealthy families to the capital Xianyang. He also built imperial highways and the Link Canal, and tore down the fortifications of the 6 states to allow armies to reach the battlefield quickly by land and water. Through these measures, the Qin dynasty took on the appearance of a unified empire in a new era. Qin Shi Huang wanted to build an eternal empire that would never fall. Yet he overlooked the most serious problem of all. You see, the people are the very foundation of imperial rule. Only by keeping the people in your heart will the people support you. Qin Shi Huang governed with harsh laws and ruled the realm through violence. In his later years, he was consumed by seeking immortality, dreaming of living forever. He launched massive construction projects, building palaces, touring the realm, performing rituals at Mount Tai, and building his imperial mausoleum. He imposed heavy taxation and ultimately worked himself to death. Having abandoned benevolence, the balance of offense and defense had shifted. This also planted the seeds of the Qin Empire's rapid collapse. The second emperor, Hu Hai, came to power through conspiracy. His rule was even more brutal than Qin Shi Huang's, surpassing him in every way. He not only cruelly executed his own brothers and sisters, but continued massive construction, using the entire country to serve his own extravagant indulgences. Finally, the straw that broke the camel's back appeared. Chen Sheng's uprising ultimately failed, but under his rallying cry, the tide of anti-Qin rebellion was like a flood bursting through a dam, impossible to stop. At the Battle of Julu, Xiang Yu smashed the cauldrons and sank the boats, utterly annihilating the Qin army's main force, turning the tide of history. At this point, the court in Xianyang was already a turtle trapped in a jar, with nowhere to escape. Faced with this dangerous situation, Zhao Gao, who had once used the trick of calling a deer a horse to establish his authority, plotted to have Hu Hai killed. After Ziying took the throne, he reigned for just 46 days before surrendering to Liu Bang and the rebel forces. A little over a month later, Xiang Yu led his army into Xianyang, massacred the city, set it ablaze, and killed Ziying. The mighty Qin Empire, like a flower that blooms and fades in a single day, hastily departed the stage of history. The Qin's tyranny and its fall after just 2 reigns served as a profound warning to rulers throughout the ages. This man embodied the word ambition to the fullest. When Liu Bang once watched Qin Shi Huang's grand imperial procession pass by, he sighed and said, "A great man should live like this." And so the dream of making something of himself took root deep in his soul. The wheel of the Han Empire was already turning. After the Chen Sheng and Wuguang uprising, Liu Bang and Xiang Yu also joined the anti-Qin forces. After Qin fell, the two men turned against each other. The weaker Liu Bang, with the support of Xiao He, Zhang Liang and Han Xin, through a series of brilliant maneuvers, grew dramatically stronger. Liu Bang and Xiang Yu negotiated, dividing the realm along the Honggu Canal, splitting China in two. This is the famous Chu-Han boundary. But Liu Bang, a man from the countryside, simply did not play by the rules. He turned around and caught Xiang Yu completely off guard. The hegemon king of Western Chu, Xiang Yu, took his own life at the Wu River to atone to the elders of Jiangdong. The 4-year Chu-Han contention came to an end. The former minor official of Sishui, Liu Bang, had become the chosen one. The Han dynasty was founded. Liu Bang inherited most of the Qin administrative structure. Although he enfeoffed many vassal kingdoms, they coexisted alongside the commandery county system. From Emperor Gaozu Liu Bang to Emperor Wen and Emperor Jing, the Liu family rulers all worked hard to govern the country, producing the prosperous era known as the Wenjing governance. During Emperor Jing's reign, the rebellion of the 7 states was suppressed by force. With the power of the vassal kings greatly reduced, the Han dynasty, now paired with the brilliant Emperor Wu, Liu Che, was a perfect match. He worked hard to govern, promoted Confucianism, weakened the vassal states, campaigned against the Xiongnu, and opened the Silk Road. In all other areas, he also carried out sweeping reforms. At this point, the Han Empire became a true superpower. After Emperor Wu, there was a brief Zhao Zhuan restoration, but in the reigns that followed, the imperial in-laws gradually seized power. Wang Mang founded the Qin dynasty, and the Western Han fell. The Lulin army, the Red Eyebrow army, and peasant uprisings came one after another. Wang Mang was killed, and Liu Shu restored the Han dynasty, making Luoyang the capital. History calls this the Eastern Han. Emperor Guangwu Liu Shu learned from the mistakes of the previous dynasty. During the reigns of Emperor Ming and Emperor Zhang, the Eastern Han entered its peak period. History calls this the Ming-Zhang governance. In the Middle and Late Eastern Han, empresses, dowager, and imperial in-laws meddled in government, while the emperors had to rely on eunuchs to exercise power. During the reigns of Emperor Huan and Emperor Ling, heavy taxation overburdened the people. In 184 AD, the Yellow Turban Uprising erupted. The court ordered each province to raise its own troops. The Yellow Turbans were quickly suppressed, but this led to local strongmen building up private armies. Warlord Dong Zhuo seized Emperor Xian and moved the capital to Chang'an. From then on, court power fell into other hands, marking the beginning of the warlord chaos at the end of the Eastern Han. After Dong Zhuo was killed, Cao Cao brought Emperor Xian to Xuchang. In 220 AD, Cao Pi usurped the Han throne, officially marking the end of the Eastern Han. They say 3 women make a drama. So what happens when a group of men get together? Does it become total chaos? In the next few minutes, let's untangle the real story of the 3 kingdoms. At the end of the Eastern Han, the Yellow Turban Uprising erupted. To suppress the rebellion, local warlords built up their own armies, leading to warlord fragmentation. Within the court, conflict between the eunuchs and Grand General He Jin triggered internal chaos, which was exploited by warlord Dong Zhuo. Dong Zhuo ruled through tyranny, deposing and installing emperors. Lords and warlords across the land rose up against him. Although Dong Zhuo was killed, the situation only grew more chaotic. At the time, Yuan Shao held Jizhou, the most powerful force, while Cao Cao controlled Yanzhou and Yuzhou, a force not to be underestimated. Elsewhere, Liu Biao held Jingzhou. Yuan Shu was in Huainan, Liu Bei and Lu Bu were in Xuzhou, and Sun Ce controlled Jiangdong. The chaotic situation filled the timid with dread, but for those with great ambitions, it was a secret cause for joy. Yuan Shao, from a family of 4 generations of high ministers, was the most powerful figure of the time. When Emperor Xian fled back to Luoyang from Chang'an, Yuan Shao felt the emperor was a liability and did not go to receive him. This gave Cao Cao the opportunity to control the emperor to command the lords. Yuan Shao and Cao Cao fought for control of the north. At the Battle of Guandu, Cao Cao defeated a much larger force, crushing Yuan and went on to unify the north. Cao Cao then marched south toward Jingzhou, ready to take on Liu Bei and Sun Quan. By this point, Sun Quan already held Jiangdong, with countless capable ministers and generals, a major threat to Cao Cao's dream of unifying China. Liu Bei, meanwhile, didn't even have a place to call his own. He was sheltering under the nominal Liu Biao. As Cao Cao moved south, Sun Quan, weighing the pros and cons, decided to ally with Liu Bei against Cao Cao. Cao Cao's army, having marched far, was struck by plague and at a disadvantage in naval warfare. At the Battle of Red Cliffs, they were defeated by the Sun-Liu alliance. Cao, Liu, and Sun then divided Jingzhou among themselves. From the Battle of Red Cliffs, Liu Bei emerged as the biggest winner. He finally had a territory to call his own, and the Sun-Liu alliance had shattered Cao Cao's dream of unifying China. After this, Liu Bei seized Yizhou, Cao and Liu fought over Hanzhong, Sun and Cao clashed over Huainan, and Sun and Liu fought over Jingzhou. The three-way standoff became increasingly clear. In 220, Cao Cao died. His son Cao Pi succeeded him as king of Wei, and that same year forced Emperor Xian to abdicate, establishing Cao Wei. Liu Bei, who always claimed to be the legitimate Han heir, also declared himself emperor, founding Shu Han. In 222, Sun Quan openly declared himself king of Wu and became emperor in 229. But once Cao Cao, Liu Bei, Sun Quan, and Cao Pi were gone, there were no more heroes who could match them. Shu Han had Chancellor Zhuge Liang straining to hold things together, governing Shu and launching multiple northern campaigns, but it was all surface activity with little real result. After Zhuge Liang died at Wujiang Plains, Liu Bei's son, Liu Shan, revealed his true nature as a doe who cannot be helped up. The Shu Han court grew increasingly corrupt. In Wu, a succession dispute broke out. Sun Quan kept wavering, unable to decide, not distinguishing between legitimate and concubine-born sons. In the end, two of his sons, one was deposed, one died. Ultimately, the two youngest sons, the seventh Sun Liang and the sixth Sun Shu, succeeded one after another. The ministers split into two factions. On the Cao Wei side, Sima Yi, who had been sidelined during Cao Cao's era, won enormous trust from Cao Pi. Through the efforts of Sima Yi and his two sons, Sima Shi and Sima Zhao, the Sima family completely dominated the court. In 263, Sima Zhao sent troops to attack Shu Han. The last ruler Liu Shan surrendered, and Shu Han fell. After Sima Zhao died, his son Sima Yan became chancellor and king of Jin. In 266, he deposed the Wei ruler Cao Huan and proclaimed himself emperor, founding the Qin dynasty. In 280, Sima Yan sent troops to attack Wu. The Wu ruler Sun Hao surrendered, and Wu fell. With that, the Qin dynasty unified all under heaven. The clashing swords of the Three Kingdoms era were recorded into the sky of history. Perhaps Sima Yi had used up all the intelligence in the Sima family, for none of his descendants could measure up. In a chaotic procession, one act ended and another began. The Qin dynasty's 155 years of turbulence. Wei, Shu, and Wu had stood as three kingdoms in constant warfare. Both courts and people yearned to end the division and unify the realm. Not long after destroying Shu Han, Jin king Sima Yan deposed the Wei emperor, ascended the throne, and renamed the state Jin, with Luoyang as the capital. Jin then destroyed the southern state of Wu, completing the unification. However, Emperor Wu of Jin, who had risen by bullying the Cao family's widow and orphan, lacked the talents expected of a founding emperor. Though capable men existed at court, they were not employed. Emperor Wu himself was not only mediocre and incompetent, but also extremely lustful, with a harem of 10,000 consorts. Moreover, Emperor Wu lavishly enfeoffed his royal relatives as kings. They were given not just territories, but also military power. This fated the Western Jin to not be a lasting dynasty. After Emperor Wu died of illness, Sima Zhong was by nature dim-witted, and real power quickly fell into the hands of Empress Xia Nanfeng. The royal princes, displeased with the Jia clan's dominance, all rose up against her, staging the famous Rebellion of the Eight Princes. Prolonged warfare caused the Western Jin's economy to deteriorate further. By the end of Western Jin, the five barbarians, Xiongnu, Xianbei, Jie, Di, and Qiang, all migrated south. Seizing on the chaos of the Eight Princes' rebellion and the refugee uprisings, they extended their claws toward Western Jin. In 311, a Xiongnu army led by Liu Kong, son of Liu Yuan, captured Luoyang and took Emperor Huai prisoner. History calls this the disaster of Yongjia. Afterward, Western Jin's two emperors, Emperor Huai and Emperor Min, were killed one after another. The Western Jin, which had existed for just over 50 years, fell. After the disaster of Yongjia, China once again descended into division. The north entered the turbulent era of the 16 kingdoms of the five barbarians. The gentry of the Central Plains fled south. Wang Dao of the Langyao Wang clan rallied the strongmen of Jiangdong. In the early Eastern Jin, the saying spread, "The Wang and Ma clans share the realm." At this time, imperial power declined, and court power was mainly held by the aristocratic clans. The Wang Dun rebellion occurred. After Eastern Jin was established, the Jin people who had fled south longed to recover their lost northern homelands. So they launched multiple northern campaigns, but due to internal disunity, the campaigns of Zhu Ti, Huan Wen, and others achieved little. Only the last rising figure, Liu Yu, achieved meaningful results. In 383, the former Qin, which had briefly unified the north, mobilized its entire army to destroy Eastern Jin. At the Battle of Fei River, Eastern Jin defeated a far larger force, crushing former Qin. General Zixuan and others pursued the victory, successfully recovering large amounts of lost territory. Former Qin collapsed, and the north fell once again into fragmentation. Afterward, Eastern Jin experienced factional strife, Huan Xuan's usurpation, and a series of political upheavals. Finally, in 420, Liu Yu, who controlled Eastern Jin's military and government, deposed Emperor Gong and ascended the throne. He founded the Song state. History calls this the Southern Song, or Liu Song. The Jin dynasty officially came to an end. The Northern and Southern dynasties can be called the most extraordinary era in Chinese history. An emperor is supposed to stand above all, holding the power of life and death. But emperors of the Northern and Southern dynasties mostly couldn't even protect themselves, like a child's face in summer weather, changing in an instant. The Northern and Southern dynasties is the collective name for the Southern and Northern dynasties. During this period, China's north and south were in a state of division. The Southern dynasties succeeded Eastern Jin, comprising Song, Qi, Liang, and Chen, all with Jiankang as capital. The Northern dynasties succeeded the 16 kingdoms, comprising Northern Wei, Eastern Wei, Western Wei, Northern Qi, and Northern Zhou. In 420, Liu Yu, who held all military and political power over southern China, kicked the emperor aside and made himself emperor, renaming the state Song. History calls this the Southern Song, or Liu Song. The nearly 170-year era of the Northern and Southern dynasties thus began. After Liu Yu ascended to the throne, he gathered talented people and carried out a series of reforms. During Emperor Wen's Yuanjia era, the south experienced a rare period of prosperity. But after Emperor Wen, the imperial family began fighting for power internally. Government became chaotic. In 479, the powerful minister Xiao Daocheng usurped Song and renamed the state Qi. But Xiao Daocheng's descendants could not resist the temptation of power. To seize the throne, they slaughtered one another, repeating the same pattern as Liu Song. This caused the southern Qi to exist for only 23 years. In 501, Xiaoyan, a kinsman of Xiao Daocheng, using revenge for his lord as a pretext, raised troops, rebelled, and captured Jiankang. The following year, he declared himself emperor, founding the Liang dynasty. After Emperor Wu of Liang, Xiaoyan, took the throne, he corrected the harmful policies inherited from Song and Qi and reduced the tragic fratricidal killings within the imperial family. But a series of bizarre decisions emptied the treasury, leaving the common people in hardship and the state in steady decline. In his later years, Emperor Wu naively trusted the fickle Eastern Wei general He Jing, recklessly accepting his surrender, letting the wolf into the house, triggering the He Jing rebellion. In the end, Emperor Wu Xiaoyan was imprisoned and starved to death in Taicheng Jiankang. Although the Hojing rebellion was eventually suppressed, the once prosperous land of fish and rice was left in desolation. And Emperor Wu's descendants once again staged the tragic drama of brothers killing brothers for the throne. In 557, Qin Baxian, who held power over the court, seized control and founded the Qin dynasty. The Qin dynasty is the only dynasty in Chinese history named after the emperor's surname. But compared to Song, Qi, and Liang, Qin was the weakest, with the smallest territory. After the last ruler Chen Shubao took the throne, he neglected state affairs and indulged in pleasure, and the state's power declined rapidly. In 589, the Qin dynasty, having existed for only 33 years, was destroyed by the Sui army. Now let's look at the situation in the north. While Liu Yu was establishing Liu Song in the south, the north was also moving toward unification. In 424, Emperor Taiwu of northern Wei, Tuoba Tao, came to power. He successively destroyed northern Yan and northern Liang, unifying the vast north. He continuously carried out Sinicization reforms, and northern Wei grew increasingly powerful. But it did not last. The political corruption of the late northern Wei and excessive Buddhist devotion angered the people. Uprisings broke out continuously, severely damaging northern Wei's rule. The state finally split into eastern Wei, controlled by Gao Huan, and western Wei, controlled by Yuan Tai. These did not last long before being replaced by northern Qi and northern Zhou. In 577, the brilliant Emperor Wu of northern Zhou destroyed northern Qi in one stroke, unifying the north. In 581, Yang Jian received the abdication and replaced northern Zhou as emperor, renaming the state Sui. Northern Zhou thus came to an end. Then the Sui army marched south and destroyed Qin, unifying China. Chinese history officially bid farewell to the northern and southern dynasties era. In terms of ability, this father-son pair was absolutely the finest father-son combination in history. But history always repeats itself remarkably. A founding emperor of sweeping ambition like a tiger, brilliant and mighty. Yet again it fell in the second generation, like a flower that blooms and fades. The Sui dynasty, connecting what came before and after, fully inherited the Qin Empire's DNA. The powerful minister Yang Jian deposed the northern Zhou Emperor Jing and founded the Sui dynasty, becoming Emperor Wen of Sui. He made Daxing his capital. A few years later, he destroyed the separatist last ruler of Qin in the south, unifying the country. During Emperor Wen's reign, he worked hard to govern, established the imperial examination system, and culture flourished. Later generations called this the Kaihuang governance. Emperor Wen's son, Prince Yangguang of Jin, after scheming his way to crown prince, killed his own brothers, forced his father to abdicate, and in 604 became the second emperor of Sui, Emperor Yang of Sui. During his reign, he built the Grand Canal, constructed the eastern capital Luoyang, and frequently launched wars, campaigning west against Tuyuhun and 3 times against Goguryeo, devastating agricultural production and the social economy. Uprisings sprang up across the land, and the realm fell into chaos. Emperor Yang was ultimately strangled by his own subordinates, dying at Jiangdu. The Sui dynasty collapsed. Later generations often attribute the fall of Sui solely to Emperor Yang's debauchery. But we should know that written history is not always fully reliable, because history is written as a hymn for the victors. Just as we see Emperor Yang's depravity, we also see Li Shimin's brilliance and might. But Li Shimin's good deeds, expanding territory, promoting education, maintaining unity, Emperor Yang had done all of these too. And the bad things Emperor Yang Guang did, Li Shimin did just as many, killing brothers and forcing out his father, massive construction projects, executing meritorious subjects. Their difference simply was, one died an unnatural death, while the other laughed to the end. Or to put it another way, if Li Shimin had failed, he would be Yang Guang. If Yang Guang had succeeded, he would be Li Shimin. The real reason for Sui's fall was that this father and son were too impatient, too eager for quick results. They pushed beyond what society could objectively bear, relying solely on forceful reform to drive social progress and in doing so caused widespread resentment among the people. Among the subsequent rebel forces, Li Yuan emerged victorious, breaking through the chaos to found the great Tang Empire, lifting our Chinese civilization to even greater heights. In the final years of the Sui, the people had no means of survival. After Li Yuan took Chang'an and declared himself emperor, the Tang dynasty was founded. Over the following years, Li Yuan's second son, Li Shimin, led armies to unify the country. His power threatened the crown prince's position. Li Shimin launched the famous Xuanwu Gate incident, eliminated the crown prince, and forced Li Yuan to abdicate in his favor. After taking the throne, he created the famous governance of Zhengguan. After Li Shimin died, his son Li Ji took the throne. Empress Wu Zetian gradually took power. Later, at age 67, Wu Zetian became emperor herself, reigning for 15 years and making great contributions to the country. After Wu Zetian died, not until her grandson Li Longji fully took power did the early Tang end and the High Tang begin. This brought the historically renowned Kaiyuan Golden Age. In the later reign of Emperor Xuanzong, Li Longji and Lushan raised troops in rebellion, sweeping across more than half of the Tang realm. This is the historically famous Anxi Rebellion. After the Anxi Rebellion lasted 10 years, regional warlordism appeared, along with eunuch dominance. National power declined, all the way through to Emperor Wenzong's era, known as the Middle Tang. The peasant uprisings that followed destroyed the foundations of Tang rule and greatly strengthened the regional warlords. In 907, the warlord Zhou Wen usurped the Tang throne. The late Tang ended. The Tang dynasty was no more. The towering skyscraper of the Tang dynasty came crashing down. The darkest era in Chinese history quietly arrived. In these decades, tyrant after tyrant emerged, corpses of the starved littered the land, and the once thriving cities of the Tang were reduced to ruins. This was the period of great fragmentation between Tang and Song, the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms. The 5 dynasties refers to the 5 successive dynasties that appeared in the Central Plains after the fall of Tang: Liang, Tang, Jin, Han, and Zhou. The 10 kingdoms is the collective name for 10 relatively smaller separatist regimes that existed alongside the 5 dynasties during this period. The later Liang was the first of the 5 dynasties. Liang King Zhou Wen usurped the Tang throne and declared himself emperor, naming the state Great Liang, known in history as the later Liang. The Tang dynasty officially perished, and Chinese history entered the era of the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms. The later Liang first made Kaifeng its capital, then later moved to Luoyang. In 912, Zhou Wen was killed by his second son, Zhu Yugui, who was in turn overthrown by his younger brother, Zhu Yuzhen. After the chaos of these 3, father and 2 sons, the regime declined steadily, and in 923 it was finally destroyed by its longtime enemy Li Kungshu. The later Liang lasted a total of 3 emperors and 17 years. The second regime of the 5 dynasties was the later Tang. The later Tang was founded by Li Kungshu, son of Li Keong, and a military governor at the end of Tang, with Luoyang as its capital. Li Kungshu was a fierce battlefield commander, but lacked the wisdom to govern a state. As a result, he was usurped by his father's adopted son, his sworn elder brother Li Xiyuan. But what goes around comes around. After Li Xiyuan's own biological son took the throne, he too was usurped by his father's adopted son. After that, the later Tang was destroyed by the Sun Emperor Shi Tang. It passed through 2 generations and 4 emperors, lasting 14 years. The third regime of the 5 dynasties was the later Jin, founded by Shi Tang, with the capital moved from Luoyang to Kaifeng. He seized this regime from his brother-in-law Li Kongke. Originally lacking the strength to do so, but driven by ambition, he shamelessly handed over the 16 prefectures of Yan and Yun, belonging to the later Tang, to the Khitan, calling himself their Sun Emperor to gain Khitan support and seize dominance over the Central Plains. Because Shi Tang had acted so wrongfully, he died after only 6 years as emperor. His nephew Shi Chongui succeeded him, but managed relations with the Khitan so poorly that he was ultimately destroyed, and the later Jin fell. Subsequently, the military governor of Hedong, northern King Liu Jiwan, declared himself emperor at Jinyang, establishing the fourth regime of the five dynasties. The later Han then drove out the Khitan and entered the Central Plains, making Kaifeng his capital. But Liu Zhiyuan was short-lived, ruling as later Han emperor for only 1 year before dying. His son succeeded him and reigned for 2 years before being usurped by his general Guo Wei. The later Han fell. Guo Wei founded the later Zhou, which became the last dynasty of the five dynasties. Since Guo Wei's 2 sons had already been executed by the later Han emperor, when he died of illness, the throne passed to his adopted son, the son of his wife's younger brother, Chai Rong. After Chai Rong took the throne, the economy of the Central Plains began to recover. However, Chai Rong reigned for only 6 years, dying at the age of 39. His 7-year-old son, Chai Zongshun, ascended the throne. In 960, Zhao Guangyin, serving as the supreme commander of the imperial guards, launched the Chengqiao Mutiny, was proclaimed the new emperor, and founded the Song dynasty. The later Zhou fell. The five dynasties were the main thread running through this era, while the 10 kingdoms, southern Wu, Wu Yue, former Shu, later Shu, Min, southern Han, Jingnan, Chu, southern Tang, and northern Han, played a supporting role without causing major waves. Some were destroyed during the Five Dynasties period, while others survived a few more years, waiting for the Song dynasty to come and finish them off. In general, the regimes of these few decades were all brief passengers in history. After Taizu of Song, Zhao Guangyin founded the Song dynasty. He and his brother Taizong of Song, Zhao Guangyi, successively swept away the remaining powers, finally destroying the northern Han in 979, thus ending the 10 kingdoms. After being clothed in the yellow robe and founding the Song, the founding emperor of northern Song, Zhao Guangyin, carried out the release of military power over a cup of wine, returning military authority to the central government. After his brother Zhao Guangyi ascended the throne, the fragmentation of the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms came to an end. However, the northern Song never managed to fully unify the country. To the north was the Liao state of the Khitan people, to the northwest was the western Xia, and to the south were Tibet and Dali. The Song emphasized civil governance over military affairs. If money could solve a problem, they would never quarrel. If quarreling could solve it, they would never fight. And so there emerged the practice of buying peace with money, the Yuan Treaty, sending silver and goods annually in exchange for 100 years of peace along the Song-Liao border. In the middle and late northern Song, the court had no sense of crisis. Deceived by the apparent prosperity of the economy and culture, while finances gradually fell into deficit, the state grew exhausted, and the people had no means of survival. During this period, Fan Zhongyan's Qingli new policies and Wang Anshi's reform had a certain degree of impact. In 1127, the Jin army stormed Kaifeng. Emperor Huizong and Emperor Qinzong were captured, an event history calls the Jingkang Incident. The northern Song fell. After the Jingkang Incident, Huizong's 9th son, Zhao Go, founded the southern Song, making Linan its capital. The southern Song court, relying on the natural barrier of the Yangtze River, lived in precarious comfort with no will to advance. Internally, it suppressed military and civilian resistance to Jin, even going so far as to murder the patriotic general Yue Fei and others. Externally, it pursued a policy of appeasement, submitting to Jin as a vassal and paying tribute. However, as the praying mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, the Mongols, rising from the northern steppe, destroyed Jin and founded the Yuan dynasty, then quickly seized the southern Song capital Linyan. The minister Lu Xiufu carried the 8-year-old emperor on his back and leapt into the sea. The southern Song fell. After unifying the Mongolian steppe, Kublai Khan went on to dominate the Eurasian continent, destroying western Xia and Jin and acquiring the Han heartlands. He emerged victorious from the internal power struggle, changed the state name to Great Yuan, and 8 years later destroyed the southern Song at the Battle of Yamen. The continuous foreign wars caused heavy taxation within the Yuan, and the people suffered greatly. Although Kublai Khan carried out reforms in the political, economic, and cultural domains, the results were limited. In his later years, Kublai Khan sank entirely into confusion and debauchery, turning to heavy drinking and binge eating, which led to his death from illness. Afterward, Kublai Khan's grandson Timur was enthroned as emperor, Emperor Chengzong of Yuan. After taking the throne, he ceased foreign campaigns and focused on reorganizing domestic military and political affairs. Various social tensions were eased, making him a reasonably good ruler. It was only a pity that he died young, leaving no heir. And so for the following 20-plus years, various factions fought over the throne, producing 8 emperors. Although some of these rulers were diligent and reforming, their reigns were all very short. In 1333, the famous Emperor Shun of Yuan took the throne. During his reign, though he employed Toktoa and others to reform governance and improve the legal system, he ultimately failed to resolve the various social problems, triggering peasant uprisings. Zhu Yuanzhang, Chen Yuliang, Fang Guozhen, Zhang Shicheng, and others all raised armies in rebellion. In 1368, Zhu Yuanzhang, who had gradually unified the south, led his army north, marching into Dadu, Beijing, the Yuan capital. Emperor Shun fled to the northern steppe, and the Yuan dynasty was declared finished. Aside from 3 emperors with relatively long reigns, the rest of the Yuan emperors had very short tenures, which was one of the important reasons for its rapid collapse. Starting with nothing but a broken bowl, he gained nearly 300 years of dynasty. Zhu Yuanzhang, born into impoverished peasantry, joined the rebel army, accumulated merit through battle after battle, and fought his way upward. After becoming the leader, he adopted the advice to build high walls, store ample grain, and be slow to claim kingship, led the rebel army to unify the south, then in one stroke captured the Yuan capital. Zhu Yuanzhang declared himself emperor at Jiankang and founded the Ming dynasty. During Zhu Yuanzhang's 31-year reign, one thought was always on his mind. There are always treacherous subjects plotting against me. So he found pretexts and had the founding meritorious officials killed off entirely. His grandson, Zhu Yunwen, then succeeded him. Zhu Yuanzhang's 4th son, the Prince of Yan, Zhu Di, using entering the capital to eliminate traitors as his pretext, waged 4 years of war to pull his nephew off the throne, ascended to the throne himself, and moved the capital to Beijing. After Zhu Di came Emperors Renzong and Xuanzong, who created the Rexuan governance. By the time of Emperor Yingzong, the emperor and eunuch Wang Zhen led troops to face the Oirat army, but they lost the battle, and the emperor was even captured. At this moment, the ministers in the capital decisively placed Yingzong's younger brother on the throne, then defeated the Oirat army and recovered the former emperor Yingzong. With the help of eunuchs, Yingzong reclaimed the throne from his brother. The eunuchs who had performed great service were granted noble titles, and from then on, eunuch interference in politics began, and the Ming dynasty started its decline. By the middle and late Ming, officials at every level massively exploited the common people, reaping without sowing, corrupt through and through. The Wanli Emperor, Emperor Shenzong of Ming, in order to change the chaotic political situation of the time, appointed Zhang Zhuzheng as Grand Secretary to carry out reforms. The Ming entered a brief period of prosperity. But after Shenzong, internal court chaos continued, officials remained corrupt and incompetent. Agricultural decline caused famine, and externally, Nurhaci's later Qin frequently harassed the borders. Beset by internal troubles and external threats, the Ming dynasty gradually declined. In 1644 AD, Li Zicheng led his army into Beijing, and the Ming dynasty came to an end. That same year, the Qing army entered the pass and occupied Beijing. Carrying on the final glory of the feudal dynasties, standing at the banks of the long river of history and looking back at the already departed Qing dynasty, there were iron-willed years and vast territories. There were turbulent peaks and cycling seasons. There was also widespread suffering, territorial concessions and reparations. And the influence it left on posterity was profound. In 1616, Nurhaci founded the later Qin regime. 2 years later, at the Battle of Sarhu, the later Qin defeated a much larger force, and the Ming army suffered a great defeat. The Ming dynasty completely lost control over the Liaodong region. After Nurhaci, his son Hong Taiji succeeded to the throne. In 1636, he renamed Lata Jin to Qing and officially declared himself emperor. After Hong Taiji died of illness, his 6-year-old son, Shunji, ascended the throne. On the Ming side, Li Zicheng led his peasant army to break into Beijing, and the Ming dynasty fell. The Qing army then joined forces with Wu Sangui, who was guarding Shanhai Guan, defeated Li Zicheng, and successfully entered the pass. Wu Sangui and 2 others, who had made outstanding contributions, were enfeoffed as vassal kings to guard the south, becoming the 3 feudatories. In 1661, Emperor Shunji died young. The 8-year-old Kangxi ascended the throne. After taking personal charge of government at 14, he eliminated the arrogant and overbearing minister Oboi. During his 61-year reign, he pacified the 3 feudatories, recovered Taiwan, repelled Tsarist Russia, destroyed Galdan, internally eased the tensions between Manchu and Han, and vigorously promoted new policies. The Qing dynasty's national strength was greatly enhanced. The Yongzheng emperor, who followed Kangxi, reigned for 13 years, was diligent in state affairs, and carried out a series of reforms. The Qianlong emperor, after Yongzheng further unified the country, vigorously developed agriculture, the economy and culture, and reigned for 60 years. The Qing dynasty reached the peak of the Kangxi-Qianlong Golden Age. After Qianlong, contradictions within the court grew increasingly numerous and gradually began to erupt in small peasant uprisings. In 1839, Lin Zexu went to Guangzhou to carry out the destruction of opium at Humen. The following year, Britain launched the Opium War. China's humiliating modern history thus began. Afterward, the Qing court's oppression of the common people grew ever heavier. The Taiping Heavenly Kingdom peasant uprising, lasting 14 years, swept through more than half of the Qing territories before finally being suppressed by a combination of domestic and foreign forces and ending in failure. In 1860, after the burning of the Old Summer Palace, the Second Opium War ended. In 1861, during the nearly half-century reign of Empress Dowager Cixi, who controlled the court from behind the curtain, China lost the Sino-French War. The Beiyang Navy was completely annihilated in the First Sino-Japanese War, and then the Eight-Nation Alliance invaded China, forcing the signing of the Boxer Protocol. At the same time, some sought to save the nation by raising productivity, and so the self-strengthening movement appeared. Some sought to save the nation through reform. Some sought to save the nation through struggle, and so came the Boxer movement. The blood of the Chinese people dyed the western sunset red, but still it could not rescue the nation from this crisis. In 1911, the Xinhai Revolution began. The last Qing emperor, Puyi, abdicated. The great Qing dynasty, along with over 2,000 years of the feudal imperial system, was completely buried, and the Chinese nation upon the ruins was about to open a new world. Another storm of blood and fire was coming. Welcome to leave a comment sharing the dynasty you think was the greatest, and subscribe to History Odyssey. Use history to train your decision-making and powers of insight.